listening, so that's good.
Okay, go ahead.
Thank you. Well, good morning, everyone, and going to call the meeting to order. And the first thing is the land acknowledgement. On behalf of the board, we acknowledge that York Region is located on the traditional territory of many indigenous people, including the Anishinaabe, Haudenosaunee, Huron-Wendat, and the Métis people, and the treaty territories of the Haudenosaunee and Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation and Williams Treaty First Nation. Today, this area is home to many diverse indigenous peoples, and we recognize their history, spirituality, culture, and stewardship of this land. We also acknowledge the Chippewas of Georgina Island, the First Nation, as our closest First Nation community. Welcome, everyone. It's good to see everyone. Not a snowstorm today, but it's going to be tomorrow, they tell me, and probably going to be fun driving around tomorrow, but it always happens around Christmas time. So, but that's what we live in, this great country of Canada with the nice weather we get. So, well, the first thing on the agenda, I think I'll turn it over to Mafalda for the election of the chair. I think that's under her executive director. So go ahead.
Thank you very much, Chair Emerson, and good morning, everyone. I'm Mafalda Avellino, the Board Executive Director, and I will preside over the election of the Vice Chair. Further to the Board Procedural Bylaw, Section 10.3, if the position of Vice Chair becomes vacant, an election of a new Vice Chair shall take place. So we will proceed with that. I now invite nominations for the position of Vice Chair of the Board. Mr. Purcell.
I'd like to nominate Mayor Pellegrini for the position of Vice Chair.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder?
Cortellucci.
Mr. Cortellucci, thank you. Mayor Pellegrini, do you consent to your nomination?
Yes, with thanks.
Thank you. Are there any further nominations? Any further nominations? Any further nominations? Is there a motion that nominations be closed? May I have a mover? Mrs. McCullough? Mrs. McCullough. Seconder, Ms. Fang? Is there a motion that Mayor Pellegrini be appointed as Vice Chair of the Police Services Board until the board's first meeting in 2023, as moved by Mr. Purcell, seconded by Mr. Cortellucci? Can you second that one? Thank you. All in favor? That's carried. I now declare Mayor Pellegrini as Vice Chair of the Police Services Board until the first meeting in 2023. Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good. Okay, well, thank you, Mafalda, and congratulations, Mayor Pellegrini. I just got a text. There she comes, a new member of the board. Councillor Jackson's giving on. I just had to give her the passcode. And she says, I'm in. So she's just connecting. So, there you are. I see your name, Councillor Jackson, so I assume you're be able to hear us. So Councillor Jackson is sitting as a new board member, but not really appointed yet by regional council. So she's here to listen to the budget process and maybe some of the balance of the report. But then once we go in camera, Councillor Jackson will have to step off due to the fact I haven't really put her through as that. So anyways, welcome, Councillor Jackson. And so any disclosure of interest at this time? Any disclosure of interest? Not seeing any. Okay, so confirmation of public minutes of November 7th, 2022 board meeting. Thank you, Mr. Purcell, seconded by Ms. McCullough. All right, all those in favor? Against? That motion is carried. So the first thing, we're going to go into the presentation of the 2023 operating and capital budget overview by the chief, and then there is a board report. The board report is part of 9.1. So when we do the presentation, I'll go to the board report, and then we'll get on with the budget. So Chief, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Chair Emerson. Congratulations, Mayor Pellegrini, as well. Through you, Chair, I will turn it over directly to our Executive Director of Finance, Jeff Channel, and Senior Manager, Sunita Airy, who will walk us through the presentation and then answer any questions as we normally do from any board members. And so Jeff and Sunita, over to you.
So just before you start, Jeff, just hold all your questions to the very end. It's easier when you're doing a presentation to complete your presentation. And then with the understanding that the questions will come back at the end. And I know Jeff is quite capable of going back to a slide. If you pick a slide, I'm sure Jeff can bring that slide back up again. So go ahead, Jeff. Sorry to stop you there, but I think we just need to get the presentation through so you have a really good understanding. Thank you.
Great. Many thanks, Chair. Many thanks to the Chief, and good morning to the board. I'm joined in the boardroom today with Sunita Arya, our Senior Manager over Corporate Finance. And again, thank you. Next slide, please. Oh, I'm sorry. We're just pulling up the slide presentation. It'll just take a moment. Oh. And we'll go to the next slide, please. So again, in today's conversation, we'll be discussing the highlights of your board report 9.1 on the 2023 operating and capital budget overview, starting with a budgeting for safer communities. And we're going to highlight that York Region remains one of Canada's safest communities. We'll then transition over to the operating budget, which showed a decrease from the last conversation that we had back in September. I'll turn it over to my colleague, Sunita, who will review a pretty substantial decrease in the capital budget, specifically in the next 10-year plan. Then we'll move over into timelines and the recommendations contained in report 9.1. Next slide, please. Just 1 second. Here we go. Okay, so you'll find this information in attachment 1 of the budget report, and it on the left-hand side shows on table 1, page 33, that York Regional Police remains the second lowest amongst the largest crime categories. And this, there are also indicators in attachment number 1 of the report from the 2021 Municipal Benchmarking Canada report for additional comparables. On the right-hand side of the slide, we are enjoying very high satisfaction ratings, and this is links to a presentation that Brenda Mulroy gave on August 5th to the board. Next slide, please. We also highlighted 1-year crime increases, which this slide depicts, and this is drawn from the YRP Community Safety Data Portal as of last week. And as you can see, we have 11 of our 12 major indicators showing increases in red, and only 1 on the top right showing a decrease around drug violations. I want to draw your attention. This is the 1-year view. If I were to show you the 5-year view, 10 of the 12 indicators would be increasing over 5 years. So we do have challenges around increasing crime trends. I wanted to point out the violations causing death. And this is the bottom row, second from the left. There's been 20. So we will see when we do have year-end reporting around our statistics, this will be the largest year of homicides in York Region in its history. However, we still remain a very safe community and having one of the lowest homicide rates per 100,000 in Canada. And this really depicts crime trends. There was an additional briefing for members of the public who were viewing on November the 7th meeting. Inspector Salia gave an overview of York Regional Police's guns, gangs, and violence prevention strategy, a really excellent briefing about how YRP is combating its crime trend increases. Next slide, please. And this slide shows cost and performance on one slide. The gross costs are depicted on the left-hand side of the slide, showing York as the lowest cost per capita amongst major communities across Canada. On the right is the crime severity, a StatsCan index, and as you can see, York is the second lowest appeal in this category. Next slide, please. Transitioning over to what's included in the operating budget proposal, this year we're requesting $391.5 million. That's a 3.9% increase before any offsetting assessment growth factors. And we are asking for 41 additional staff through this budget proposal. This next slide we refer to as the 5 budget levers. And it really depicts the information in table 2 of the report. It's page 35 of your package. Our incremental budget request this year is $14.6 million. And I'll start from the top. $9.3 million is for wages, and this includes items within the collective working agreements, reclassifications as members work their way up in bands within the uniform and civilian collective working agreements, as well as annualization. In our staffing is gapped, meaning when we ask for staff, we need to budget for it both in the current year and a portion into the next year. So that annualization is all incorporated in the $9.3 million on that top row. Operating expenses of $3.7 million. This is a historically high number, and I have a future slide showing about $2.2 million of it relates directly to inflationary costs. The other $1.5 million has a number of items in it. The top 3 are software maintenance and licenses, fleet and facility costs. The next item for additional staff, and I've got a slide depicting this in a moment. This is actually a $200,000 decrease from the dollars that we discussed back in September. Principal interest in reserves. So this is how we finance our capital slide. This has seen a significant decrease. So this is there are 2 main edits here. First of all, we made a reduction to a planned contribution to the York Regional Police Infrastructure Reserve. And secondly, we made several submissions to Treasury Office, and I do want to pause and thank staff from the Treasury Office led by Jeremy Bly's group. We went back and forth with several iterations on how the YRP Infrastructure Reserve can finance the capital programs. We found very significant savings by now financing short-lived assets, a focus on short-lived assets that we're bringing through to the taxpayer today. And finally, revenue impacts. It's an increase of $800,000 across a number of revenue items. Next slide, please. So for the additional staff, we're asking for 41. This is an edit or a decrease of 4 staff from our last conversation. And 3 of them came out of the Safer Communities Initiative. So what we are proposing is 20 additional staff. Primarily, it's 16 that will end up impacting operations branch, primarily the districts, and this supplements Frontline, this supplements CIB, or Criminal Intelligence Bureau, as well as starts a new community support officer program. This is civilianization, low risk tasks to offset from frontline policing. We're asking for 11 to support organizational transformation, and this is almost exclusively the Chiefs branch. In executive services, this is to supplement strategic communications and our professionalism, leadership, inclusivity office. And finally, 10 to combat serious and violent crimes. This is 7 sworn officers, 3 civilians in those targeted areas to address those crime increases. Our next theme is inflationary pressures, and we mentioned a large increase to expenses. Well, $2.2 million of it relates to inflationary costs. The largest item by far is our fuel costs. So this is a 45% increase to fuel to average up to 1.55 cents per liter. The region does run a fuel hedging program, meaning that we should have this one large step increase into this year's budget, and then the fuel price should be stable for the next 3 years. So we're looking forward to finalizing this bank for the next 4 years, really. There are also expenditures of $500,000 around inflationary increases. This is mainly fleet. This is mainly facilities costs, as well as uniforms, as well as increases primarily in hydro, 14% cost increase in our hydro costs. I want to also highlight to the board today a number of efficiencies. These are also outlined in the report. And I'll start with staffing deployment. And we have 3 main efficiency initiatives on as we speak. The first is a call diversion enhancement project. This is pulling calls away from the front line and into a call center to facilitate the best use of the front line. The addition of community support officers in this budget. Again, this is to put civilians into low risk activities to offset frontline tasks that are currently performed by the front line. And we're also going to study, further our study, I should say, on investigative as well as frontline reviews. And this is starts a consulting that we had during 2022 that will continue to look at our operations for efficiencies into 2023 and beyond. There are also a couple of major technology efficiencies that are starting to make their way, these investments making their way through to the budget. One is the fuel efficiency of hybrid vehicles. And I just wanted to mention that the boards, we were the first service to go fully into transitioning our fleet to the hybrid frontline police vehicles. And I'm pleased to say that there is an offsetting fuel savings to that. In fact, we're talking about actually holding those vehicles a little longer. As well as efficiencies around how our staff use technology. And this is e-notes. E-notes will help transition the officers that won't be paper notes into 2023 and beyond. And Connected Officer puts a cell phone into the hands of all of our frontline members. And finally, process changes. And I wanted to link these two together because both these activities are currently residing at the Community Resource Center in Richmond Hill. The first is a review of motor vehicle collision reporting, and we are reviewing alternate methods of how the public can report in motor vehicle collisions to YRP. And secondly, we've already completed an online identity check by Equifax. And what this does, it's an efficiency for the public initially, where they no longer need to attend to receive a clearance or a volunteer sector check. And this has reduced our foot traffic already by 80% less foot traffic. And Equifax allows identification online and and we can deliver these reports now electronically. Now, those two functions, we are looking for efficiencies here. That last one, it did a cost avoidance where we didn't have to bring 4 information processor positions through to the budget. We were able to redeploy those customer service positions into information management to self-service the growth in that area. We're also looking at this. We've taken a close consideration to the board's comments when we do lease renewals. And this is a lease facility in Richmond Hill right now. And again, our goal here is to reduce our footprint if we can make this all work into a digital process. Next slide, please. Yes, and at this point, I'll transition over to Sunita to give us an overview of the capital and capital budget and capital spend authority.
Thank you, Jeff. Good morning. The capital plan has been developed to provide the infrastructure necessary to deliver quality policing services. The 2023 capital spend authority request is $32.6 million. This includes a total of $7.6 million of rebudgeted funds from 2022 to 2023 budget, primarily due to the construction delays at 240 Prospect renovation and a final progress payment on the new helicopter. A full list of the proposed rebudgeted projects has been provided in attachment 3 of the board report. The 10-year capital outlook of $200.8 million is $15.8 million below our budget allocation over 10 years. This chart highlights the 2023 capital spend authority request of $32.6 million by asset category. The project details are also identified in attachment 4 of the board report. The request includes $11.7 million in fleet replacements and the final payment for the new helicopter. We've got $8.7 million of information technology to refresh and modernize service delivery, including the police in-car modernization and digital evidence management system. We have $5.4 million in facilities, which includes the initial phase of a new facility to consolidate leased premises, the warranty payment of our 1 district headquarters construction, and renovations to existing facilities as identified by the building condition assessments. We're asking for $4.3 million for specialized equipment, and this also includes updates to the 911 backup center in preparation for NG 911 enhanced service delivery, and $2.5 million for communications equipment for our radio system. The 10-year capital budget request is $200.8 million. The details are also provided in attachment 2 of the board report. The new projects that were added to the 10-year capital plan to meet operational needs include a specialty vehicle replacement plan for $2.9 million. And this project includes a replacement of a command post, specialized trucks, and an armored vehicle over the next 10 years. Other projects that are incremental in the 10-year outlook include under renovations to existing facilities, $2 million inflationary provision per the construction price index. And as Jeff mentioned before, existing projects were reviewed for potential reductions to minimize the additional funding pressures to the region and to sustain long-term creditworthiness. As a result, 2 projects were deferred by 5 to 8 years, totaling 32.8 million. And this includes the consolidated lease premise and the replacement of the radio system project. And with that, I'll pass it back to Jeff. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sunita. And once again, this year, as a closing summary, the budget is really the opportunity to optimize the often competing factors of cost, risk, and performance. We've listened to the board. We've made edits to the staffing requests, as mentioned in the presentation today. We've made edits to the capital plan based on requests from Treasurer Marabella and her group. And it boils down to continuing to be the lowest cost per capita amongst larger services in Canada. Again, the proposal is mostly built around the incremental request of 41 additional staff, addressing our 3 key themes this year. It addresses the inflationary pressures, primarily within fuel, but also contractual obligations. It delivers efficiencies. And again, we've had cost avoidance here and focusing on technology, our process, and how our staff is deployed. And finally, it delivers a robust capital plan that includes sound financial planning in accordance with asset management planning principles. So on this next slide, I'll draw the conversation back to the recommendations that are contained within the report. There are 4, and I'd like to draw your attention to number 2, that the board approve the 2024 outlook. In normal financial planning purposes, we would typically list all 3 of the outlook years for consideration. That adds extra weight. It's something that's not included in this proposal or in this recommendation, because we continue to have conversations and communication with Office of the Budget in York Region about what those numbers exactly will be. So the scenarios that you're going to see from the treasurer, we're still discussing them. It's premature to actually include them here for approval today, but we have put the 2024 tax impact there. That's a 4.7% increase for 2024. And again, that's just for financial planning purposes. I want to confirm we're just approving the budget that's actually in front of you for approval is outlined in recommendation number 1. And finally, recommendation 3 approves the proposed capital spend authority. And number 4, this is around the timeline. So we expect Treasurer Marabella to table the budget on January the 26th, 2023. As next steps, they're asking the chief to present on the 2nd week of the committee of the whole, which is February the 9th. And the tentative approval by the council of the budget takes place on February the 23rd. And with that, I'd like to just pause and thank staff of both organizations. I know that some of the budget unit staff are listening to this morning's conversation. I'd like to thank the team for a lot of hard work. I'd also like to thank our partners over at York Region, both in Office of the Budget, and as I mentioned, an extra special thank you to Treasury for being patient with many submissions from York Regional Police this year. And with that, I'll turn it back to you, Chair and Chief, for any of the questions that the board might have.
Well, thanks, Jeff, and thank you very much. If you just bring my full team back up again, if you can. We do have the slideshow in our package, so we can go back over that. So if you bring me the board members, good. So members of the board, are there questions to Jeff and his team going forward? I'm going to bring up item number 9.1 also, the report itself. So the presentation and the report. Not seeing any. Jeff, yes? Ms. Van, go ahead. Yeah.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Wayne. Thanks, Jeff, for the presentation. I just have some clarification questions, please, around 3 slides. The first one is on the crime trends. We are very proud that York is still one of the safest communities, but as you mentioned, the trend is a bit worrisome. And in this package, we also saw other region, like Durham region, send out letter to various levels of government with the concern of the increase of the firearm violence. So I'm wondering, I'm sure behind the scene, Jim and the team are joining force with other police services in combating these increasing crime trends. Can Jim shed some light on those work, please?
Yes, Ms. Fang, and through you, Chair Emerson. I can tell you, Ms. Fang, I've had a lot of conversations amongst my peers across the province, at the OACP level as well. There's an ongoing discussion. There have been letters sent through the Canadian Association of Chiefs of Police and the Ontario Association of Chiefs of Police, urging both the provincial and federal government to really focus on these crime trends and understand the complexity of these crimes, and to invest, as it relates to guns. As I've mentioned before, and I can mention again, it does tie into a letter we're going to see here in a little bit, but the proliferation of guns that are being found in the communities, we all know, a high percentage of those guns are coming across the border, those that can be traced. There's a lot of work going on between both the provincial and federal government. Our Solicitor General directly, and I had a meeting with him yesterday, a one-on-one meeting here, to have all of these discussions that we're having here about crime trends, support for policing, and support to have he and his colleagues at the province urge the federal government to do all they can to tackle the issue of guns crossing the border between the US and Canada. So there's a lot of work going on around that. I can also tell you there's a provincial conversation going on right now around stolen vehicles. As we know, those are happening on a regular basis. And there is a strategy that will unfold in the coming weeks and months between all police services across the province at a sort of a coordinated discussion. It's being right now coordinated. It'll be coordinated through Peel and the OPP, but we will be a big part of that discussion and partnership as we move forward. So there's a lot going on around crime and crime trends, but relative to what has gone on, I always urge caution when looking at some numbers because we are coming out of a pandemic. We had this discussion. We had a town hall with the Markham community last night. There was over 200 people in attendance. Myself and Deputy Roush were there, along with the superintendent. The mayor was there, many community. And, sometimes the perception isn't always reality. So when you see a spike from one year to another, but you're coming out of a pandemic as it relates to things like break and enters, for example, the trend actually over 5 years isn't as great as it might look from one year to the next. In particular, when people were at home during a pandemic, and we know during that time, residential breaking enters were significantly down. So it may look like a significant spike, but the reality is this is probably a normal trend with some slight increases here and there for York Region. So a lot of work going on, Ms. Fang, and we are coordinating both at the provincial and as best we can at the federal level with all chiefs and deputies across the province.
Thank you, Jim, for the clarification. And if I may, please, my second comment will be on the additional staff slide 41. And we definitely want to continue to support and strengthen YRP. And I'm just wondering, normally we would like to invest more resources in the front line directly combating violence and protecting safer communities. But we did notice that 11 headcounts to support organizational transformation, which is a good thing too. Just Jeff, perhaps if you can add some more color around the transformation aspect that these 11 headcounts will support.
Thank you, Ms. Fang, and through you, Chair, to the board. Regarding supporting organizational transformation, there are eight civilian positions, one sworn, and 2 senior officer positions. Strategic communications is one of the major areas. There are 3 civilians heading into that space: a communications specialist, webmaster, and digital content specialists. And these are some historical unmet needs that we are now filling. The other main area is the professionalism, leadership, and inclusivity office. And this is a brand new office for York Regional Police headed by Superintendent Ed Villamere. And we plan to add a manager, an inclusion supervisor, as well as another professional in that office. So those are the major transformational items that you're seeing brought through the budget this year.
Thank you, Jeff. And my last comment will be on the efficiency slides. It's great that we focus on productivity and efficiency. And I'm wondering, is it possible for some of the initiatives, perhaps we cannot quantify the benefits, but if we can add a column just to show benefits, either quantifiable with an estimate, or some of them is just qualitative benefits like improving customer service, for example, like all those online processes improvement. So it's just a comment for your consideration, please.
Yes, thank you, Ms. Fang. Will do.
Anything else, Ms. Fang?
Last one, I noticed the NG 911 backup initiative, and the reason for that is OAPSB has sent out communication, especially to help smaller forces in applying provincial funding for that. So I'm wondering, in this budget, is it net of the potential provincial funding, or it's the total cost?
Maybe Sunita?
Oh, so we are applying with the region for funding for NG 911. The application is due in early January. So we're meeting with our region counterparts to submit a consolidated application.
And the costs that you're seeing today, Ms. Fang, are the gross costs excluding any revenues, because we're unsure at this point whether our application will be successful with York Region to offset the cost. So you're seeing the actual cost that it will that we will incur. Any revenues would be extra, a bonus.
Okay. Thank you, Wayne. That's it from me. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments to the budget? Welcome, Councillor Jackson. Good to see you there. And I know you're going through some difficult times, and our thoughts and prayers are with you and your family. So the budget, yeah, this is a different format, Jeff. You've changed things up a little bit. I don't think I'm ever seeing it. And well done, sir. And very well received. The hybrid vehicles, that's great. That you should maybe emphasize that when you do present to the region. I know there's a couple of members of council interested in how we're doing with the environment. And I'll have to be honest with the board members and to the to York Regional Police is that Bill 23, we're still getting the still trying to find out just what Bill 23, how it's going to affect us cost-wise going forward. We won't see that much in 2023, but it will be in 2024 and beyond. We had to sharpen our pencils more, and I met with the team this week on the other day on Monday regarding our budget and at the region, and yeah, we've had to sharpen and see. We had to defer some of the capital projects because of the costing of what's happening with things. Is we could do a road. We had actually we're supposed to do a road north on Yonge Street, north of Davis Drive, but it came in double of what we had anticipated. So that's going to be an issue for us going forward. So everything we do at York Region is going to be a very costly thing. And if we lose the DC charges, then it's even going to make it worse as we go forward. So bear with us, but I don't believe it. I think 2023 will be okay going forward. I think we will get we will get more information as we go by the summer and keep going with it, but it will start probably in 2024 and beyond. York Regional Council has always been very supportive of York Regional Police. I don't think it's going to be any different going forward here, but we are some other issues. We have servicing for East Gwillimbury. We have affordable housing. We have a lot of good things that are going to be happening over this next term of this council. So there's some issues that we have to deal with, and it will come, and the council will rise to the occasion. So I will get, before I get to your question, Chief, I'll ask Mayor Pellegrini and Council and Mr. Burchell to move receipt of the presentation and to just move the recommendations in 9.2 going forward. Thank you. Now, Chief, go ahead before I call the question.
Yep. Thank you, Chairman Emerson, and through you. I just wanted to, I never want to miss an opportunity to thank, well, all of the deputies, because everybody here has worked very diligently on this budget and a huge thanks go out to both Jeff and Sunita and the entire finance team. As you see, they do an outstanding job for us every year. And I just didn't want to miss that opportunity to thank them for their hard work and dedication here at YRP. And lastly, I just wanted to as well, Regional Councillor Jackson, on behalf of York Regional Police, express our condolences to you and your family. And we're thinking about you as well. I know you're here with us. So, through you, Chair, thank you very much for that.
Thank you. Yeah, she's going to be a great addition once I get through tomorrow. If I get through council tomorrow. Hey, Councillor Jackson, with the snowstorm and everything, we'll get through it. Okay. The motion's on the floor. All those in favor? Against? That motion is carried. Thank you. Okay, we're going now to communication. It's the recommendation just received and refer to the Chief of Police. Is there any questions on that recommendation? Ask Ms. Fang and Ms. McCullough to move that recommendation going forward. The Chief will continue on with that. Yes, Ms. McCullough, you want to comment on it? Anything? No, you're okay. Thank you, Ms. Fang. Good. All those in favor? Against? The motion's carried. The next item is the 9.2, 9.3, and 9.4. We'll do them individuals, only a couple of them. We'll go through them. 9.2, any questions on 9.2? It's the financial reporting for the period ending September 30th. Any questions on that? I'm not seeing Mr. Colalucci and Mayor Pellegrini. I'll get you to move and second that. All those in favor? Against? The motion's carried. The next one is the contract extensions beyond 5 years. Questions on those contracts? I'll get Mr. Purchell and Ms. McCullough to move those. Any questions? Don't see any. All those in favor? Against? The motion is carried. And the last one is 9.4 2023 Board Operating Budget Request Report of the Executive Director. Once again, I'll ask Mayor Pellegrini and Mr. Purchell to move that item forward. I just have, Mafalda and I had a good meeting the other day and to go over the budget or go over the budget end of the agenda. I want Mafalda to bring, we will have a little bit of a workshop early in 2023 to talk about the board and the staffing at the board. Mafalda has asked for another staff member in the budget, so I'm willing to leave it in there until the fall. But I think we need to understand what staffing we do need and what, if any, changes going forward. And so we will be dealing with that going forward. I have no issue with the board, but there was one item that kind of brought my attention was in the role of the board. It's item number 4, and I'll read it to you. You don't need to bring it up. You don't have it there. The board is an important democratic institution whose role is to ensure community safety and good governance of the police services. The importance of the role of the board cannot be understated, which I agree. And if there is a deficit or gap in the governance or oversight, then organizational dysfunction may follow, putting the reputation of the board and services at risk, impacting operational function of the service and perhaps even community safety. I'm not sure. I've heard of some boards really having some difficulties, some personnel conflicts, but I'm not sure it would be, I would hope it would not affect the community safety. I really think that that's an operational thing by the Chief of Police and his staff and the York Regional Police Association, York Regional Police. So I'm not sure that really, if the board, I think it's really what you're saying, if there's a deficit or gap in governance and oversight, well, yeah, but I think it's, like I say, I don't believe that the board looking at policies and doing things like that will have much to do with the operation. So I'm hoping that the community will still be safe. And I know they will be going forward. So that was just my comment, but I have no issue going forward. But I do stress upon early in Q1, we will meet regarding the organization of our staff at the board level. Anyways, the motion's on the floor to approve going forward. All those in favor? Against? The motion is carried. Thank you. So the next one is before the private. We have unfinished business, the board meeting and the schedule. There were some dates in there, and I have to on the dates. Oh, wait a minute, was it the dates? Yeah. No, that was. I need a paper copy here. Yeah, the board meeting schedule. So on the board meeting schedule, there is one date that the chief and I may not be here. It's the one in March. The UN Council in New York has asked the York region to come to New York on the Wednesday and Thursday in March 22nd. So I'm asking that the board meeting be moved to the 20th on the Monday. I know, Mayor Pellegrini, you have a council meeting at nighttime probably, but this would be in the morning at 9:15 to go forward. So I'm hoping we can do that one. Now, Mafalda, you had the 23rd. You said the red one. So what was your, want to make some comments on the 23rd and the 24th?
Chairman, if I could defer that to Jacqueline, I think she's the one that put it together, but on my understanding, I think there was some conflict with one or two board members for the 20, for a couple of those dates in that week. So the 23rd seemed to work, but again, I'll ask Jacqueline perhaps to weigh in on that those two dates.
The three dates that were changed were January, May, and November. Those were to accommodate a board member's request. So January 23rd is on the Monday to accommodate. And May was moved. Originally, it was proposed to accommodate OAPSB's annual spring conference, but their date is actually later, so we were able to move that meeting. And November's was also moved to the 15th, which I believe was a week earlier than what was proposed in October.
Okay, so we could also move the March 22nd to the 20th, March 20th on Monday, that would be great. So those are the four changes. Are there questions? Walter, do you have a question? Anything? Yes, Walter? Your hand's up, but you've gone mute on me. I think your connection.
Yeah, Chairman,
Yes.
if I may, I may have a conflict on Monday mornings. I believe they scheduled class for me on Monday mornings.
You got to go to school, Walter. That's
I do indeed.
okay. Well, let us check those. We can still look at that date in March. We can still look at.
I'll work that out with Jacqueline.
Sure. Okay. Thanks, Walter. That'd be great. But if we have to do any more changes, we'll do that in January. Ms. Fang?
Yeah, I'm okay with March 20th. But I now have conflict on the February 22nd, and I can work it out with Jacqueline offline too.
Okay, good. Thank you. Thanks very much. Okay. So we'll just move, but we will work to our best to find a date that everybody can make, because we really want to make sure all board members are there. So if we can go to the motion, which was just to go forward with this and on the board schedule at this time. So thanks, Ms. Fang and Ms. McCullough. We'll use that, and with the understanding there could be some more changes in going forward in the year. All those in favor? Against, the motion's carried. Now the meeting format, I try to look at it this way. It was I know we started with the consent agenda, and I know Mayor Bobolacqua tried his best to go forward with it, but the consent agenda, the chief and I were talking is on the reports. When we do a consent agenda, we usually, the recommendations are there. If there's one item that you want to pull, that's great, and I have no issue whatsoever for any items you want to pull. We can pull them all, but I just want to make sure we spend enough time on the important ones and get through the business of the York Regional Police Board. So the format will stay the same basically, but on the communications, I've asked Mafalda to put a recommendation down just to receive more information. And if it needs to be referred to herself or to the chief, then that's what the motion will be, with the understanding we will maybe end up getting some more information in future board meetings. So that's where that is. That's what I meant by the board meeting format. I don't think there's much else with that going forward. All I ask, and I do this with my same at the York Region Council, is that if there's some questions that you have regarding for anything on any of the reports, please send an email or a text to Mafalda or the chief. So they have an understanding of what your questions are going to be, and they can give you the answers and then going forward. I'm just trying to, because sometimes when you ask a question, sometimes the chief needs to be a little bit more aware, and so does Mafalda needs to be aware of what your issues are. And then they will have the answers for you, and they could even email you back or text you back. So I ask that if you can reach out, it's an email or a text, and then you can get the answers, and it helps. It helps. And it could even be if you send it to the chief or Mafalda, Deputy Chief Rouse may be the one who's going to answer and make a call to you to understand, so he knows what you're asking, so we get you the right answer going forward. So that's more or less the understanding of the format of the board. Now, the next one, there's no motion with that. That's just a conversation. Next one is number 11. The chief will update us on the Supreme Court decision for the chief. Go ahead.
Thank you, Chairman. And through you, as you all, I believe, have heard by now, we had a landmark decision here that we had orchestrated through a project called Project Raphael that occurred back as far back as 2014. So this, as far as this case went, there were 104 men that were charged with luring children for sex in relation to sex trafficking and child exploitation. Undercover police techniques were utilized during the investigation, and it resulted in, as I mentioned, 104 people being arrested who were actively trying to purchase prostituted children. The technique is a significant contribution to public safety, and I will say this decision, because it was dealt with at the Supreme Court with a 9-0 decision in favor of this technique, has created a different landscape for policing across the entire country. So make no mistake about it, it has huge significance and implications for how we can move forward on investigations like this. The real significant piece to this is, because we were proactive in the techniques, not one child was harmed or had to testify in court. And as you can imagine, when you talk about trauma-informed and victim-centered approaches to how we do these things, when you're able to keep kids out of the courtroom and actually not even being interacted with people who are trying to lure them, that is a significant public safety outcome for these techniques. We had an 81% conviction rate on this matter. 13 investigators were involved throughout the case from the time it started through the court process and beyond. The majority of cases involved sentences anywhere from 6 months to 2 years. Majority of all of the 104 people that were arrested were all first-time offenders. We went through 30 preliminary hearings, 30 trials, plus 2 retrials, plus additional entrapment hearings. So you can imagine significant weight on the organization. And as a result, 4 cases of the 104 were appealed right to the Supreme Court, as I mentioned, and the landslide decision which is very rare for the Supreme Court to actually come out with a unanimous decision like this. So cannot overstate the impact this has, and a huge thank to every investigator who've given their heart and soul into this investigation. It was a different type of technique that was used, and nothing that was done anywhere in Canada. And the outcome of this is outstanding as far as I'm concerned. So I just wanted to give you a bit of a verbal briefing on that. It was reported in the media. Both Ty Trung, Superintendent Trung, and myself spoke to Global, and there was a lot of interest. So I just thought I'd pass that on verbally, and through you, Chair. Thank you for that, and I'll turn it back to you. Thank you.
Thanks, Chair. Questions to Chief? It was a great outcome, and thank you, sir. Thank you all the men and women involved in that. That was great. Going forward, okay, I don't see there's really no motion. It's an update on what happened, and that's going forward. I did forget to mention for the format, and I was on the board meetings. We did talk about being in person or virtual. Now, I have just to put it in perspective, I have a council meeting tomorrow, sounds like a major snowstorm coming. I'm thinking that we had about 12 wanting to come, but I think I'll be lucky if I get half a dozen tomorrow because of the snowstorm coming forward. Mafalda figures, and she checked with other police services boards, that we probably could do a hybrid with some coming in like my council does, and some would still continue to do it virtually. The only issue is the technology. Now, if the technology breaks down and it's in our boardroom, then that may put the board meeting in jeopardy. I can't, the council chambers are set up, but the council chamber is too big because there's only a handful of people that are going to be here. So I'm going to try it. We're going to try it virtually in January and see, and we're going to try it hybrid, virtually and in person. Now, if it's predicted like today or yesterday, like the storm was coming today, then I would have said to Mafalda, we will send out a notice to say we'll do virtually. But if it looks like a nice day like today is, it'd be great to see sometimes and during the course of the term to come in. And I know the chief and the EC team and the staff would like to be able to communicate with you as you come in to the board meetings. So anyways, right now we're going to try it. Mafalda is going to work with it and do some testing to see if it can work as a hybrid model. And we will advise you when the board meeting goes out that it can be hybrid or in person. But if it's a nice day, please come in. Please come in, and so we can actually do some networking and get a chance to meet the team firsthand. So that's what we'll start with to see how that works out. But I know January, February are tough months to say whether we get a storm or not going forward. Maybe sometimes the weatherman's not always right either. So we'll wait and see. Okay, so that's good. So I don't have any other business on this. I don't see any other business coming before the board before we go into the private session. So Councillor Jackson, thank you. I have to say goodbye to you, but not next board meeting. I will not be saying that. But anyways, all the best, and I will see you probably tomorrow. And thank you for coming. No, I won't. Oh, I apologize. Yeah, you won't see it tomorrow. But anyways, if there's any concerns, by all means, send me a text or something. And
Thank you, Chairman. No, I have the visitation for my father tomorrow and the funeral on Friday. Thank you.
So just
thank you all.
If there's any concerns on the agenda tomorrow, Councillor Jackson, please send me something and I will bring that forward at that time.
Thank you, Chairman. Good morning, everyone. Have a good day.
Thanks. Ms. Fang?